Welcome again to the Backyard Solar Project. Bluetti recently sent me a test unit of their new B300K battery. In today's video, I'm going to try and cover some content that hasn't been shared on other channels. First, I'll do a quick size and capacity comparison between the B300K and Bluetti's original battery, the B300. After that, I'll talk about my experience connecting the B300K to the AC300. And I'll share results of an efficiency test that I ran that simulated a small AC load, like a refrigerator, and how long that could run off of the B300K and AC300 combination. After that, we'll talk about how the B300K interfaced with the AC200L. And I'll repeat that efficiency test with that combination. Finally, I'll share my thoughts on why I think the B300K could be a great addition to your system, whether replacing or supplementing a B300 battery. This will be my first video at chapter marks, so feel free to skip ahead to the section that makes the most sense for you. Let's get started.
When the B300K first arrived, our cat Winston took an immediate liking to it. Perhaps that's because it was smaller and less intimidating than the B300 that had arrived many months prior. At first glance, it's pretty obvious that the B300K and B300 are about the same width and also the same depth. But when comparing them side to side, you can very quickly see that the B300K is quite a bit shorter at 8.23 inches versus the B300 at 10.5 inches. From a weight standpoint, the B300K comes in at 65 pounds. That's about 15 pounds lighter than the B300. If we're comparing that in terms of number of Winstons, the B300K is about 5.5 Winstons heavy, whereas the B300 is a whopping 7 cats heavy. The battery capacity of the B300K is 2,765 watt-hours, whereas the B300 is 3,072 watt-hours. So overall, the B300K is 19% lighter, with a 10% lower capacity. In reality, though, you might see similar performance out of these two units, depending on the load you're running. Be sure to check out my efficiency testing later, and you can see some of those results. Now let's talk about inputs and outputs. And it's here that you'll see the big differences between the B300K and the B300, and also why the B300K starts off at a much lower price. On the B300K, there's no solar input or DC charging input, where the B300 has both. From an output standpoint, the B300K does not have a 10 amp DC output, whereas the B300 does via a cigarette lighter port. There's also no USB-C port on the B300K. The B300 does have one. Finally, there is one 12-watt USB-A output port on the B300K. On the B300, the USB-A port is 18 watts.
Connecting the Bluetti B300K to the AC300 inverter and charge controller is a very straightforward process. Here I have a AC300, a B300K, and my original B300 battery. I'm going to walk through connecting all three of them in different configurations. So to start, connecting the B300K to a powered off AC300 is as simple as taking the battery cable, plugging it in, making sure both switches are in the on position, and then turning on both devices. As you can see, it starts up no problem. The AC300 shows the current state of charge for this B300K at 25%. And then I will turn on the AC output. And this lamp is connected to the AC output, so you can see that it is working. Now, if you want to add a B300 to the system, it's also pretty straightforward. You can plug it either into the AC300 or plug it through the B300K. You can also connect the B300K to a B300 and then to the AC300. So for now, I'm just going to hook the B300 directly into the AC300. I'm going to turn the B300 on, and you will hear a quick beep out of the Bluetti. But as you can see, the AC power didn't shut off. And now the Bluetti is reading the state of charge for the average of the B300 and the B300K. Another interesting thing is that if you already have the AC300 running with the B300, you can connect a B300K to the system, and it also won't shut the AC power off. And let me demonstrate that in reverse. I'm now going to remove the B300K from the system. You will hear a beep, but once I remove the B300K completely, the beeping stops. And as you can see, the AC300 did not shut off the AC output during that connection, or during that disconnection. Now I'm going to reconnect the B300K battery, and once again, the AC power won't shut off. We'll hear a quick beep from the Bluetti. That beep will go away when we slide the locking switch from the unlocked to the locked position. There's the beep. I'm going to slide the switch. And now the AC300 inverter and charge controller is again showing the average of the state of charges of the two batteries. So you can see you can connect the B300K directly to an AC300. You can also connect it to an AC300 along with the B300. And you can connect it to the AC300 while another battery is connected, and the AC power will not shut off. Now let's talk about some efficiency testing between the Bluetti B300K battery and the AC300 power station. I like to do an efficiency test that simulates a refrigerator. So to do that, I need a constant load somewhere between 50 and 60 watts, because that's on average what my refrigerator pulls per hour over a 24-hour period. So to simulate the refrigerator and be consistent with it, I use this 60-watt light bulb. When it's turned on, it draws about 58 watts. Now I connect this up to a fully charged B300K and AC300, and I let it run until the whole system shuts off. I also did this test earlier in the year with the B300 battery. So I have results from both tests to share with you. Let's take a look at them right now.
Connected to the AC300, the B300K shut off after 30.3 hours running the 58-watt simulated refrigerator load. B300 ran for 31.8 hours in the same test conducted earlier this year. The B300K output 1,761 watt-hours, whereas the B300 output slightly more at 1,840 watt-hours. If we divide both watt-hour outputs by the usable watt-hours in each battery, we get an efficiency score. The B300K, with its smaller total capacity, came in at a 70.1% efficiency. The B300 came in slightly lower at 67% efficiency. The B300K is only 10% smaller than the B300, but its output was within 5% of the B300. That's why it gets a higher efficiency score of 70%. The combination of the B300K and AC300 is more efficient at running this small load than the AC300 with the B300 battery. However, the B300, with its 10% larger size, does have a slight edge in total runtime.
Now let's talk about connecting the B300K to the AC200L. Out of the box, the software in the AC200L should work with one B300K. However, if you want to connect both a B300K and a B300 to the AC200L, you will need a software update from Bluetti. I got that software update, and I can confirm that I needed it in order to connect both types of batteries with the 200L at the same time. Connecting the B300K to the AC200L is a pretty straightforward process. To see what happens to the AC output when I make this connection, I've plugged this lamp in and made sure the AC output was turned on while I connect and disconnect these batteries. So let's start off by connecting just one B300K to the AC200L. Plugged in. I'm going to turn the lock switch to the locked position. As you can see, the screen turned back on to show 50% state of charge. That's the average state of charge between the AC200L and the B300K battery. And if you noticed, the light bulb did not shut off. The AC output stayed on while I made that battery connection. Now let's do the same thing with the older B300 battery. So I'm going to disconnect the B300K, turn the lock switch to the unlock position, press the button to remove it. You can see the state of charge adjusted to just the AC200L. Now I'm going to plug in the B300 battery. In this case, the B300 shut off actually. So I've plugged it in, locked the switch in place. Now I'm going to turn the battery on. You can see when I turn the B300 battery on, the AC200L shuts off the AC output. Turn that back on. So it seems that you can't generally hot swap a B300 battery with the AC200L and still have the AC output remain on. I'm going to repeat that process again with the B300K so you can see what I'm talking about one more time. I'm going to disconnect the B300, turning off the switch. AC output shuts off. Unplug the B300, turn the AC output back on, and I'm going to connect the B300K. Lock it in place, and you can see the AC output remains on the entire time. Now let's talk about connecting two batteries to the AC200L. For this demonstration, I've turned the B300K and the B300 sideways so you can see their battery expansion ports. Remember, the AC200L only has one battery expansion port. So in order to connect two batteries to it, you have to daisy chain them through each other and then to the AC200L. Let me show you the simplest way of doing that. And as I connect them, I've got this light set up on the AC output so you can see both the battery state of charge and if the AC output turns off during the connection. So to start, we're going to take a battery connection cable and connect it to the B300. I'm going to lock the tab in place. And just a reminder, when I say I'm locking the tab in place, this top button here lifts up the latch so you can slide the cable in. And the second sliding switch says lock and unlock. Make sure it's always in the lock position when you connect it, after you connect it. It's something we all forget to do, and that completes the communication contacts with the AC200L. I'll just turn this screen back on. Okay, so we've got the B300 battery. We're connecting it to the B300K. I'm going to use this expansion port right here. Lock it in place. Now both batteries are connected to each other. Again, take another cable, connect it to the B300K, lock it in place. And now we're going to connect that cable to the AC200L. Lock it in place. And you can see the AC output didn't turn off during this connection. And now the state of charge in the 200L reflects the combined state of charge of the battery in the AC200L plus the 2 external batteries. Let's take a look at what happens when you already have one battery connected to the AC200L and you want to add a second one into the system. In this case, the B300K is connected, and you can see the state of charge of the combined system with the AC200L and the B300K is 49%. Now, let's add the B300 battery into the system. Again, the AC200L only has one battery expansion port, so you have to connect the B300 battery to the B300K, make the connection, lock it in place, and you can see the state of charge on the AC200L now reflects 56%, which is the state of charge of all 3 batteries. And during that connection, the AC output didn't shut off. So that's 2 ways of connecting 2 batteries to the AC200L. As a recap, the first way we did it was connecting the 2 batteries to each other and then connecting them to the AC200L. And the second way we did it was when we already had one battery connected, and we took the second battery and connected it through the first battery, and that made a 2 battery external connection to the AC200L. Now let's talk about the efficiency test that I ran with the AC200L and the B300K and compare it to the results of the same efficiency test run earlier this year between the AC200L and the B300.
In our simulated refrigerator test, using a 58-watt load, the B300K connected to the AC200L ran for 62.8 hours. That was nearly identical in time to the B300 connected to the AC200L, which ran for 63 hours. The B300K output 3,686 watt-hours during this test. The B300 output 3,661 watt-hours for the same test. Both numbers are just about the same. If we divide the output watt-hours by the usable watt-hours in each battery and power station combination, we get an efficiency score. For the B300K combo, the efficiency score is 83%. For the B300, the score comes in at 78%. Even though the B300K is 10% smaller, it has nearly the same output as the B300 and is much more efficient at running a 58-watt load. So here's my final thoughts and some recommendations after spending some time with the new Bluetti B300K battery. First, let me share what I think some of the benefits are. It's lighter and smaller in size than the B300 that it's replacing. It's definitely much easier to lift and maneuver this new battery. It's more efficient than the outgoing B300 battery as well. That was very clear in my runtime tests with both the AC300 and especially with the AC200L. It's compatible with many Bluetti products, including the AC300, AC500, AC200 Max, and AC200L. Who knows, maybe Bluetti will also make future products that are compatible with this battery as well. From a downside standpoint, I don't think there are many, but the one that really stood out to me was that the battery is actually slightly under 3 kilowatt hours of capacity. Because it's more efficient than the B300, you probably get very similar runtime out of this battery. But if you're purchasing it and hoping to get a federal tax credit in the US where you need a 3 kilowatt hour battery, you may have to buy 2 of them. It doesn't have a USB-C output. Now, I currently have plenty of USB-C outputs on my AC300 and AC200L, so that doesn't affect me very much. But if you're someone who constantly uses all those USB-C outputs, it isn't going to be here on this battery. There's no solar or DC charging ports on the battery. I don't currently use the solar or DC charging on my battery, but I've heard from many people who do. So if that's a must-have on future batteries, something like the B300S, which we didn't talk about, is something that you might want to consider instead of the B300K. So where would I recommend using the B300K? I definitely recommend using it to expand your current systems that have B300 batteries. I'd also recommend using it as additional storage for AC200L and AC200 Max applications. especially if you are using the ports and connections that are directly on the AC200L and you don't need the extra ports on the battery itself. Finally, I'd recommend the B300K for most Bluetti systems that just need additional battery capacity. Systems where you aren't using the battery as an additional solar charge controller, and you aren't connecting things to charge or power directly from the battery. In these situations, the B300K seems like a very good value proposition. Well, that's all we have time for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.